Hey guys, it's Jessica.
And this is Kendra, and you're listening to
Lucid Lab. And I'm back from my trip,
Ta-da.
so we can stop talking about it, but I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to ask you because we haven't seen each other since you got back.
Yeah, because I got sick.
Yeah, I wanted to be nowhere near you because I think in last episode we were talking about how I had the flu.
Yep.
I got over it. It's still kind of lingering, and now you probably have it.
Unfortunately, mine started on the trip though, and it wasn't from my daughter. It was just a long trip, and I think I got it from the parks.
I said that. I was like, you went to Disney. It's like guaranteed sickness, I swear.
And I never get sick. It just sucks. It ended up ruining what I was looking forward to, which is the beach house that we were going to do. It hit me so hard, and I spent like a day and a half in bed there. So
I'm so sorry.
I didn't get to experience that place like I wanted to, but I will definitely go back there. It was amazing. It's literally like 50 feet from the beach.
Oh, that's awesome.
And because it's like this residential area of Mission Beach, where it's busier is away from you. So it's like your own little section of the beach. And
perfect.
My daughter just, I swear, she was meant to be
at
the beach. Yeah. I do have some really cool shots, and we got seashells and all of that stuff, but I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. I have been like having daydreams of waking up early and being on the beach by myself or like doing this stuff. And it just didn't happen because I was
definitely
so sick.
Yeah.
Sucked so much, but we had an amazing time. She loved Disney, obviously. We weren't as big of fans of Universal. We won't be buying that again anytime soon. I mean, she loved Harry Potter, but other than that, I felt like it was a waste of my money.
Oh, no.
To be honest. There's just not a lot of good rides. So many of the rides are
screens.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That make me sick, actually.
Yeah. I just was like, this sucks. I didn't care for it at all. I had no fun. The only rides I enjoyed were the Mummy one
that one's cool.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic World is cool. Even the Harry Potter one in the castle made me a little sick.
Yeah. I mean, it was neat, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, well, we did end up spending like the end of the day just in the Harry Potter world.
Yeah. The world itself is cool. I do feel like the rides at Universal, it's like they're kind of a one and done thing.
Yeah.
Versus Disney, you can ride a lot of those rides over and over.
Right. I did get that pass, and that saved us so much. We did everything on the lightning lane. Like we checked everything off the box. And
awesome.
We didn't get to do anything twice, but we all left with Space Mountain and Big Thunder being our favorite.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of jam-packed
go.
And I did the parks for 3 days with a hurt foot. Which was really hard. I like pushed through it. My mom and my daughter, we went on one of those whale dolphin boat rides. Yeah. And it was 3 hours. It took an hour and a half to get out there.
Oh,
and
wow.
We were going like full speed, and we wanted to experience it. So we were one of the only ones like on the side of the boat downstairs, like just experiencing it. But because we were going so fast, it was freezing. You could get pushed over the boat in a second with like just the wind. I was bracing myself on the boat, holding my mom and my daughter. Like I was trying to be Mama Bear so they didn't fall over.
Right.
And I think the way that I was bracing myself the entire time, I
put strain on your foot.
Yeah, I pulled something in my foot, and so that kind of screwed me over. We did see dolphins and we did see whales, so it was worth it. And I can't not talk about this. I did stay on the Queen Mary, and that was an amazing experience. I want to go back.
Yeah.
When we got to Anaheim, I'm like, I miss the Queen Mary. It's just a neat place. I didn't feel any ghosties. My mom said that she did see an apparition.
That's amazing.
She was so cute because she kept saying affirmation. And I'm like, you mean an apparition? But she just kept saying affirmation. So the first time she told me, I think I saw an affirmation. I was like, where?
What?
So my brain was like picturing an actual affirmation, like floating in the air. You are so loved.
You are exactly where you're supposed to be.
And I was like, oh, an apparition. She's like, oh, what did I say? And I'm like, it's okay. It was cute, but it's definitely something to go see. And although we kind of talked about it in the Queen Mary episode, that there's a rumor that it might be decommissioned.
Yes.
They assured me there that it is not. And if anything, they are just adding more, boosting things up there. So, and that's the feeling that you get when you're there. It doesn't feel like they're going to just all of a sudden not have that there anymore.
Good. Maybe they got the right management company now.
I think so. And the room was huge. I was surprised. I was expecting a tiny little room, and it's not. It was bigger than the hotel room we were at when we were staying in Anaheim's.
Yeah.
The bathtub is tiny, though. It's pretty cute. My daughter was sitting in it, and she fills up the bathtub.
Yeah. I guess a cruise ship bathroom. Although I think they've probably remodeled it now that it's not actually on the water.
But I didn't feel like I was losing any type of amenities by staying there. It was really neat. So
nice.
I would check it out. And then for the rest of the trip, you know, I tried to throw in little things here and there that was more from my spirit to be lifted. Like when we were driving down to San Diego, we stopped in Dana Point and we ate at the dock there and we saw seals and they were squawking and talking and just sitting by the water. That's the biggest thing is me and water. That's where I feel okay. And so when we were in Anaheim, I felt weird. I was like, take me back to the water.
I need to see the water.
But we loved it. The only thing that really sucked at the end is I'm trying to travel with my daughter in the airport with the flu and I had to pack everything with not in the right mind. And she had gotten this snow globe from Disneyland and I put it in the carry-on not thinking and they took it because it's liquid. And my daughter broke down crying at the airport and we were so frustrated that we left to just try and get to our gate and not thinking we left her bag with security check.
Oh.
Like I was so flustered. So we ran back and in the bag was this water bottle we had. It was like a $40 water bottle. It was my daughter's and there was like an inch of water in it.
Oh my God. Are they going to take that too?
They took it. They were like, you can go dump it out and stand back through security. I'm like, that took us 55 minutes. I don't have that kind of time. So I had to let them take the water bottle too. And she cried over that. It was just a shitty experience trying to get back. And then to top it off, I think me and my daughter were being trafficked is not the right word, but we were targeted by one man coming back into Denver. Like we got off the plane, we had a lot of bags and I was trying to get on the bus so I could get back to my car. And this one guy came up to us and he's like, oh, I'll help you get it on the bus.
Okay.
And I was tired. It had been a long day. I'm like, whatever. So he's helping getting stuff on. And as I'm trying to get onto the bus, I had this one bag that I had a lot of stuff tied to it. It had like the neck thing, my daughter's coat, like other things. And it was all twisted up and I was trying to get it all undone, but it was taking a while and he was trying to let other people back on. So it was kind of in the way. And I just kind of made an announcement to people. I'm like, I'm trying, you know, and then that guy who was helping us get our bags on spoke up and yelled at the bus driver saying like, he said something. I didn't hear exactly what he said, but all I heard was the bus driver go, yo, man, that's not what I'm trying to do at all. Like that is not what this is. I'm just trying to help as many people get on this bus as possible, you know, and he did, like he jam-packed that bus.
Right.
For reference, the guy who helped us with some of the bags is this bald-headed white guy, tattoos. The bus driver was black. What really got me is he got us to our cars and, you know, they drive around taking everybody to their individual car.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first stops was that guy.
Okay.
And he went to the bus driver in front of me and my daughter and said, well, where are they parked? I need to help them.
No.
Thankfully, the bus driver was like, no, man, you don't need to help them. And he kept looking back at me. And in that moment, I realized he never looked at me once. He was only staring at my daughter. When he came up to help me and her, he never talked to me once. He never looked at me once. He never acknowledged me. He only talked to my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. And so I was so glad that he was gone. But once the bus driver got us to our car, I talked to him. I was like, thank you for standing up back there because
that was weird.
I didn't register it at first, but I think he was trying to get me and my daughter alone in a dark parking lot.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could tell.
Oh my God. The bus drivers probably, I don't want to say they probably see that, but they are alerted to something like that maybe.
And he even put all of the bags in the back of my car just so we could get in the car and lock the door.
Yeah, because that guy could have been sitting and waiting. That's weird.
I know. It was a really weird situation to like end the trip, but
yeah, unsettling.
It didn't matter how many people were on that bus. He was still trying to do what he was going to try and do. And it's just shitty.
And trying to come across as helpful, which is what they do. I know every time I'm in the airport, because I was traveling for work at the same time you were gone, I remember being in the airport and there's just all the signs everywhere about like trafficking. And I've heard stories from flight attendants and just it happens a lot through the airports. It's scary stuff to think about. We don't want to think about it, but it happens so often and so quickly.
I mean, I was completely out of it. I didn't even think about it like that, even with everything that we talk about, until I heard him say, where are they parked?
Yeah,
I need to help them. I'm like, who the fuck are you?
I don't want your help. I didn't ask for your help.
I don't know you. So anyway, sorry, that was a lot longer, but a lot has happened.
And we have not recorded in a while. And I've been traveling, like I said, for work. And then the only thing I want to talk about, because I think it's big and this will be coming out right as the season finale is going for season 2, is that I came home and I was cleaning my house this weekend after being gone, and I started binging a show. I couldn't stop watching it.
Oh.
And that's Severance on Apple TV.
Oh, I've heard about it, but I have not watched it.
So good. I had watched the first episode a long time ago, like on a plane, and then never caught back up to it. And I kept seeing things on TikTok and I was like, I'm going to sit down and watch this. And I like did nothing. Well, I mean, I kind of cleaned house while watching it or whatever. Definitely something worthwhile to watch. It will make you question a lot of things, and it feels very relevant to some of the shit that's going on in our lives right now.
Okay.
Quick synopsis. It's just about like an evil corporation.
Oh, okay.
That promises people that they can leave their work life at work. It's a work-life balance, and severance is basically they sever your brain so that when you're at work, you don't know that your outside personal life exists. And when you're in your personal life, you don't know what happens in your work life. So
Ooh.
Very cool. I don't want to tell you anything more.
Okay.
Watch it.
Well, I just happen to still have Apple TV. I got it to finish another show and then I can't figure out how to cancel it because Xfinity makes things really hard. So I still have it. So maybe I'll watch it.
You'll get sucked in.
Okay. I don't have time though. Anyway,
I didn't either.
What
but
are we doing today, Kendra?
So today we are talking about a paranormal place.
Oh, okay.
Mixing it up a little bit because we've been on a true crime kick.
We have.
But this story kind of has a little bit of true crime mixed in with it because, as are all haunted places,
Yep. They have to get haunted somehow.
it's not about the ghosts. It's about why those ghosts exist in that place to begin with.
Oh, before you continue, I also went to the Whaley house. I almost forgot that too.
Oh, did you?
Yes. I'm like, gosh, I did so much on this freaking trip. I went to the Whaley house and I did go to the cemetery.
And?
No ghostly feelings. Again, it was just a really cool experience to be there. And at the cemetery, if anybody decides to visit that, if you see all these little like crosses made with stones by the markers that are not the actual graves, because I think if you listen back to that episode, you see the graves in that cemetery, but then someone went back with sonar radar or whatever and found out where the actual graves are. So there's a bunch of metal pins in the ground where people are actually buried. And my daughter went and put these little like crosses with stones on as many as she could.
That's cute.
So if you go there, that's my daughter. She did that.
She did that for those poor souls.
Yeah, that were not marked properly.
So on this week's episode, we are headed to Arkansas to visit what has been dubbed, I laugh every time I say these, America's Most Haunted Hotel.
And I took a picture of the sign for the Whaley house because it says America's Most Haunted House.
It's like they all like change
Yeah.
it just a little bit.
Right.
I think Stanley Hotel might have that dubbed as well, and probably some other hotels.
Queen Mary might say it.
Lumber Baron Inn that we covered, I feel like said something like that.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Anyways, this place has a lot of ghosties. And that is the Crescent Hotel.
Arkansas. I don't know if I've heard of this one.
I hadn't heard of it either. I was just looking for some creepy places because I wanted to do a paranormal episode, and this one came up as the most haunted hotel. And there was a lot of stories of people visiting, and I'm like, well, this sounds cool. And then when I started looking at the history, that's what drew me in.
Okay.
And realized I could do a whole episode on it because a lot of haunted places, it's hard to do a whole episode.
It really is. You have to dig.
Or you feel like you're just saying the same things over and over.
Just becomes a history episode, and then you talk about the ghosties after.
Which this one will kind of be, but it is interesting history, and there is some true crime.
Okay.
So this Victorian era hotel is perched atop the hills of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and it is something to behold. It's beautiful. Like, I want to go there and just stay because of the architecture.
Okay.
Many guests and staff have claimed to see ghosts and evidence of supernatural activity. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, it is true that the hotel has an eerie and unsettling history, and recent finds, as recent as 2019, have only added to the creepy allure of this haunted place.
Okay.
We will unravel all the history behind the site chosen for the hotel and leading up to everything that has happened since it was built in the late 1800s. Ghosts come from somewhere.
Yep.
So let's start with the location of the Crescent Hotel. Eureka Springs is a city in Carroll County located in the Ozark Mountains of northwest Arkansas, near the border of Missouri.
Okay.
As of the 2020 census, the city population was 2,166 people, so it has always been a pretty small community and continues to be. Eureka Springs was originally called the Magic City, or Little Switzerland of the Ozarks. and later called the stair-step town because of its mountainous terrain and the winding up and down streets and walkways throughout the town.
Well, all of those names were pretty neat.
Like, I've driven through Arkansas, but I've never like really stopped.
Yeah.
I've heard there's some cool stuff there, like with the springs and everything. And this place sounds like my cup of tea if I was going to visit. The city itself is very Victorian styled. There's little cottages and big manors, and then this beautiful hotel among the winding streets. The buildings within the town are primarily constructed of local limestone.
And we know what limestone does.
Yes. And it's built along limestone streets that curve around the hills and rise and fall with the topography in a 5-mile long loop.
Oh, wow.
Some buildings have street level entrances on more than one floor and other such oddities because of how it's built into the mountains. For example, the Basin Park Hotel has its front entrances on the floor that is below the first landing, and then they have an emergency exit that is on the back of the building on the 5th floor.
Oh,
so
wow.
It just kind of tells
That's
you
a big difference.
They were really building these hotels and houses and everything to work with the ups and downs and all around. We have some of that in our mountain towns in Colorado as well.
Yes.
There are no traffic lights in Eureka Springs, so it's small enough for that, just 5 miles, and there's no real reason to have traffic lights because none of the streets really intersect into what we consider like right angles to make an intersection.
Okay.
They're just kind of all winding.
So I can get lost there.
Sounds like it. Going way back before this town even existed, Native American legends tell of a great healing spring in the Eureka Springs area. People of various indigenous cultures long visited the springs for this sacred purpose. The hills and valleys of the area are ancestral lands of the historic Osage Nation, and bands of Delaware and Shawnee peoples also lived here before the federal government conducted their removals and banished them to their reservations.
I hate America more every day.
I know. And there is a population that thinks this is okay. Early white settlers to the area also believed that the natural springs had healing powers. After European Americans arrived, they described the waters of the springs as having magical entities. Dr. Alva Jackson was credited in American history with locating the major spring. Of course, the white guy had to get credit. And in 1856, he claimed that the waters of Basin Spring had cured his eye ailments.
His eyes.
Doesn't really say exactly what he was facing. Maybe glaucoma. I don't know any other
Did he
eye
use
ailments.
it as eye drops?
Apparently. Dr. Jackson established a hospital in a local cave during the Civil War and used the waters from Basin Spring to treat his patients.
Interesting.
After the war, he marketed the spring waters as Dr. Jackson's eye water.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess it was like Visine.
And then they get those brain-eating amoebas.
Or they're like blind 10 years later because there was some mineral that you're not supposed to put in your eyeballs.
Yep.
In 1879, Judge J.B. Saunders, who was a friend of Dr. Alva Jackson, claimed that his crippling disease was cured by the spring waters.
Or he just lied about his disease in the first place.
Probably. This was the time of swindlers, as we'll see is a trend that will stick with this area for a while. He started promoting Eureka Springs to friends and family members across the state and created a boomtown.
Okay.
Within a period of little more than 1 year, the city expanded from a rural town to a major city. Thousands of visitors came to the springs based on J.B. Saunders' promotion and covered the area with tents and shanties. In 1880, Eureka Springs was officially incorporated as a city. And by 1881, just 1 year later, Eureka Springs enjoyed the status of Arkansas's 4th largest city. And just 8 years later, in 1889, it had become the 2nd largest city at the time, right behind Little Rock. Early African-American residents were freedmen who had moved to the city from farms where they were previously enslaved. Some visited for employment or for health benefits and just decided to stay. I know. And this is the South, where I believe Arkansas was on the Confederate side.
Okay.
It was a hostile area. But despite all of that, they were able to build up a small little community for those who had been freed from slavery. And they had a school for Black children, and they built up the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Segregation continued to increase in the area after the United States Supreme Court ruling in Plessy versus Ferguson, which was all the separate but equal bullshit. And this meant that African Americans were banned from all springs except for Harding Spring. So they had one that that they could go to and get the healing benefits.
Okay. Was that a harder trek to get to, probably?
I'm sure it was probably like 5 miles from the city or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the spring waters probably only like flowed once a year or something stupid. In 1872, Republican Congressman Powell Clayton moved to Eureka Springs, and he began marketing it to his friends and cronies as a retirement community for the wealthy.
Oh.
Which, of course, led to the Black community being shunned
out
even more.
Right.
And they'd already pushed out the Native Americans that originally owned this land and was their sacred land. It's just every story of every city that was created in America, apparently.
Yes.
In 1882, the Eureka Improvement Company was formed to attract a railroad to the city. With the completion of the railroad, Eureka Springs became a more accessible destination from people all over the nation, not just Arkansans. What are Arkansans called? I'm like, what are Arkansas people? Arkansans. Within 2 years, thousands of homes and commercial enterprises were constructed, and this is when we will see the Crescent Hotel built along with many other hotels because they had the demand, people coming from all over. Something else I should mention is that the springs in Eureka Springs are cold, not hot.
Okay.
And this actually led to probably what most of us would know Eureka Springs from, and that is the Ozarka Water Company. So Ozarka water is sourced from Eureka Springs, and it was formed there in 1905.
I'm less scared to get into cold springs than hot springs. I've seen too many movies where people get boiled to death.
Oh, in hot
because
springs.
of something happening.
I've only been in hot springs.
I've been in one, and I don't know if I should say this. This is very interesting, actually. I was camping, and there was a group of people who showed up, and they were hippies of some kind, but it was a bunch of young girls with old men and gray beards, and their license plate was Arkansas. And
it's relevant to the story.
It's relevant to the story. So I ended up in the hot springs, and they ended up coming up there at the same time, and they were all buck ass naked, and I couldn't handle it, and I left.
Yeah. I wonder what was going on there if it was a bunch of old dudes with young girls.
Yeah, I judged them.
Mm-hmm. You know? I'm judging them right now. Hopefully those men were rich.
But that was my first experience with people from Arkansas, and I was like a teenager. And I do not hold that opinion of everybody that lives there. Old men and young girls naked in a hot spring.
I would assume that was going on in Eureka Springs.
I mean, maybe.
There was a bank robbery that occurred in Eureka Springs on September 27th of 1922. There were 5 outlaws that rode in from Oklahoma, and they tried to rob the First National Bank. 3 of the men were killed, and the other 2 were wounded, and that became a big story in Eureka Springs. And today it is reenacted every year during their antique car parade.
Oh.
But it wasn't all boomtown for Eureka Springs. Tourism collapsed during World War I, which resulted in a slow decline of the area. The Klan came into Eureka Springs and all of Arkansas, and it really drove out the little hustling and bustling African American community that had been thriving there, and they all kind of left. So now it's, even to this day, it's a pretty white town.
Oh, so we don't want to visit.
Hold that, because there are other reasons we're going to want to visit Eureka Springs. Because I think it's like this whole serendipitous moment, because when I get to what modern day Eureka Springs is like, it's actually a haven for other things.
Okay, and hopefully it stays that way.
In 1964, a man named Gerald Smith decided to build a religious theme park named it's got to get worse before it gets better. They drove out all the black people, and then Mr. Gerald Smith is like, let me build a religious theme park, because that's what everybody wants to visit.
Fuck.
It was named Sacred Projects, and it was proposed to include a life-sized recreation of Jerusalem.
That's like the guy who tried to turn the Waverly Sanatorium into like that
Christ
thing. Yeah. What is up with these people?
Well, speaking of Christ,
calm down.
Speaking of Christ, the project never fully developed. He didn't get the theme park off the ground, but there are 2 components that he began, and that is a 7-story Christ of the Ozarks statue.
Oh, that's what he was trying to do at Waverly too, and he never got the funding. It was like a big old...
He was trying to do what Rio de Janeiro has, right?
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like this guy kind of was too, and he completed that part and then probably ran out of money for the rest of the theme park because he made it 7 stories tall.
And it's still there?
It's still there. It's called Christ of the Ozarks.
Okay.
And then they started a play called The Great Passion Play, which is performed during the summer. It is still performed today.
Is it old dudes and girls in a
hot tub? No. It is I believe, the reenactment of the crucifixion.
Oh.
The Great Passion Play is regularly performed from May through October by a cast of 170 actors and dozens of live animals. So maybe it goes from like Jesus' birth all the way to his crucifixion. It's like
so
the
they
story.
like walk up the winding roads and kill somebody?
I think so.
Whoa. What if they actually do, and that's someone is chosen every year?
The Great Passion Play has been altered from the original screenplay, or whatever you want to call it, script. It was originally set with Jesus being beaten at Herod's court and included a monologue blaming his death on the Jews. So on top of being racist towards Black people, they were also anti-Semitic.
How about we just not do plays?
Not ones about religious things. But this play has been seen by an estimated 7.7 million people, and it is the largest attended outdoor drama in the United States. That is not something we're proud of.
Still?
Still.
I'm still waiting for you to convince me to go here.
We're getting there. Christian-themed attractions have been added in association with this drama production and the Christ of the Ozarks. These include a new Holy Land tour featuring a full-scale recreation of the tabernacle in the wilderness, a section of the Berlin Wall. I don't know how that fits in, but it's there, and a Bible museum featuring more than 6,000 Bibles. Items include an original 1611 King James Bible, a leaf from a Gutenberg Bible, and the only Bible signed by all of the original founders of the Gideons.
I don't like that word.
Bible?
Or Gideons. That sounds too much like The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, Gideons from the Bible. And I do believe Gideons are the ones that put it. I'm kind of spouting that off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's who's responsible for putting them in all of the hotel drawers. Now, ironically, while all the Christian tourism was rising in Eureka Springs, the isolation of the town and the affordable property made the town an attractive kind of back to the land destination for hippies, counterculture radicals, and lesbian separatists in the late 1960s and 70s.
That is an odd combination in that place.
So quite the opposite demographic is coming there and actually purchasing the land and the homes while these people are doing their Christian tourism.
Weird.
They at first faced a lot of resistance from many locals.
Yeah.
But as businesses were established by these new citizens and it was attracting more tourism, they kind of like lived in this mutual respect place. So there was the Christian side, and then there was the big like hippie LGBTQ community going on. The accepting environment fostered a network of gay and lesbian business owners, and the town became known as a resort town for LGBTQ tourism.
Whoa, didn't see that coming. I thought it was going to become a Black community again. That's kind of what I thought you were going to lead to, but
no, went another direction completely. This place has seen it all. During the AIDS crisis in the 1980s, community members formed the Ozark AIDS Resources and Services to distribute mutual aid and care. Eureka Springs suffered stronger impacts than other parts of the state, and the community lost many leaders and establishments.
Okay.
I look at this as kind of the San Francisco of Arkansas.
Of the South?
I don't know about of the South. I don't know enough about the other states, but definitely one of the more liberal places in Arkansas.
Okay. It seems like it just happened overnight, but it must have been over a couple decades then. I don't know how it shifts from like this purely Christian place to that. It had to have happened over quite some time.
It was over like the 60s and 70s is when they started moving in with the hippie movement and people looking for places to get away and like live on the land.
Okay.
And I think everyone else, they weren't moving there. They were just using it as a tourist destination.
So then the people I met, by the way, this was in Arizona, those people were from that group.
They could have been.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like the hippie kind of guys. On May 10th of 2014, Eureka Springs became the first city in Arkansas to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. On May 12th of 2015, Eureka Springs voters passed in an overwhelming majority a non-discrimination ordinance, which basically said that no one would be discriminated against in any business, hotel, community for race, sexual identity, or gender.
Good. I hope it stays that way, man. She's already shaking her head at me.
It became the first city in Arkansas to have such a law to cover LGBTQ residents and tourists. but then the state came in and didn't like it. And there was a state law that was introduced to invalidate the anti-discrimination ordinance. And that went into effect just 5 months after they voted it in.
God,
these fucking state assholes.
You just cannot let anyone be happy.
No, like what is that hurting to say that no one can be discriminated against? And then you come in from the state and be like, no, I want people to be discriminated against.
I want to hate that person for no fucking reason.
And I want it written into law that it's okay for me to hate these people. I don't understand that mentality. In response, the town's mayor stated that they would be prepared to defend their ordinance in court. Basically, the way that the state came, it was a state senator named Bart Hester, who's an asshole, and he wanted to prohibit cities from passing their own rights ordinances. It was all because he was, racist and
homophobic.
Yeah, and he's probably secretly gay, like they all are.
Yeah.
Like our fucking vice president who's secretly gay and speaks out against it and wears eyeliner every day.
He has a lavender marriage, but judges everyone. I saw a comment today that said that he has a gooey handshake.
All I know is that him and his little family, his fake family, because he's actually secretly, supposedly having an affair with Lindsey Graham, who's also down low gay. Anyways, they couldn't go to Vermont because they drove him the fuck out.
Oh, yeah. They're showing up in Bernie Sanders land and thinking that they're going to have a nice ski vacation. No.
Those people went after them and I
did.
was living for it. And they left. They didn't stay.
Good. So. Apparently he tried to ski in jeans and they didn't like it.
He probably did. So yes, people feeling threatened by others just living their lives is not new. It's been around since the dawn of time in America specifically. And we know that the current administration will continue to propagate these ideas because they can't handle that other people just living their lives in happiness, being who they truly are, while they're following their little biblical rules and they're fucking miserable. That's all it's about. They're jealous.
It's really stupid. I just can't even wrap my head around how people think in this country.
Like, why
all
do you
over
care?
The world. I mean, we've seen people stand up from other countries and be like, yeah, Trump, yeah, this. And it's because they all are cut from the same cloth. It's men wanting to control everyone else.
Always. Just go build your own little colonies.
Just go
somewhere.
into a cave, find a little pond, and put it in your eyeballs.
And die.
And die. Sorry, guys, we're being a little spicy because, as you know, here in America, there is news on the hour every hour of how things are changing here. We are angry on a level that we do not get to express. So when we get to sit here and be on mics, it's really hard to hold back. It really is. But
it's so hard. Like, I could talk about it all day. And
just
I know.
Forgive us. But we're never not going to stand up for the things that we believe in. And we're watching everything we've ever known come crashing to the ground, which that doesn't go to say that this wasn't a shithole before all this happened. Okay. Like, America is responsible for a lot of bad things in the world and a system needed to be broken. And so that's how we've been choosing to kind of see things, that there had to be a disruption in order for us to revolutionize and get what we actually want.
Truth.
And it's going to be a hard road. How we are soothing our souls right now is by making fun of people who deserve to be
made fun of.
Yes.
Because they're evil people. Like,
they are very evil people.
They have very cold hearts. And I don't understand how people continue to support them.
Because they are fed lies through the only sources they are willing to listen to.
Yes, true.
And they truly believe that that is the truth. And they have no one else other than seeing what they call us liberals or us Democrats or whatever saying the exact opposite. And they have this opinion of us. So unless you are willing to actually go and look into what is the truth here, they're always going to see anyone like us on the other side as just as stupid as we think they are.
It's true. One more thing I'll say before I go back into my episode. If you believe that Ukraine invaded Russia,
you are dumb.
Stop and go and research.
Yes.
There is a long line of history about Ukraine and Russia.
Yes.
And there are promises that we made as the United States of America years and years ago before Trump ever existed.
And Russia made those promises too.
Yes. What happened with Zelensky is an embarrassment, and I am so ashamed to be an American.
Yes.
Having to watch that. I just have to say it because I don't know where else to put it, but
we don't know where else to put any of this, you know? So we're hoping that who listens to us now is along the same wavelength. And we know that some of you weren't. Some of you did listen to us in the beginning, and then we started to get, quote, political, even though everything we've ever said has been about human rights.
It's not politics at this point.
It
ever.
is not. And we've had some comments from people, oh, you got political. A lot of stuff is coming to light. That's just where we are right now. We are in
hell.
This is a very intense time in history for everyone around the world, because the U.S., whether we like it or not, we're tied to every country. And what happens here affects people in other countries. And what happens in other countries affects us here. And so we're all tied in a way that I don't think any of us quite understood until now. And we're still trying to figure out. I just have to say that we at Lucid Lab, we stand with the people.
Yes.
We are not with any specific politician.
Don't give a
government,
fuck.
Anything like that. We are for human rights, plain and simple.
Exactly. And I'm going to align when I vote with whoever is most likely to take care of those humans.
Yeah, because we don't get a lot of choices here.
No.
We have a broken system just like anywhere else.
Just know that we want to be on the right side of history, and every opinion that we have is along those lines. We believe in human rights and being on the side of humanity. I don't know what other word. I feel like we're just saying that over and over, but it's like...
But it's the truth. I mean, there's no other word for it.
Rational thought. Like some of this insanity, I don't get.
Food, love, do what you fucking want.
Everybody gets to live a life.
You should be able to afford things.
If you work 40 hours a week,
homeless.
You should be able to live anywhere you want.
Raise your child. Be able to hold your baby for more than 2 weeks once they're born. Have the option to not have a child, not be forced into having a child.
Oh my God. So many things.
Be able to cross country lines and not have it seen as a criminal act. We're all human beings on this planet. No one gets to own shit. That's my opinion.
No, we're just passing through.
I'm sick and tired of it. Oh my God.
We're all passing through trying to get as much joy out of life as we can. And there are so many people who want to strip that from others.
Yeah.
Including this asshole fucking guy named Bart Hester in Arkansas. So we're back to the late 1800s now.
Okay.
And we might be back to the late 1800s in America soon. It's all the same.
All right, we're back.
So the Crescent Hotel was part of this history, and it was commissioned in 1884 by the Eureka Improvement Company under the leadership of Powell Clayton, who was the former governor of Arkansas, and he was to build this for $294,000, which is equivalent to about $9.2 million in today's money. Quite a big investment.
But not really.
I mean, for a large hotel, I don't know what it would cost.
I don't think so.
It's a stunning 5-story building, and it's located atop the hills of Eureka Springs, and it has 27 acres of grounds around it.
Oh, yeah.
During the building of the hotel, Irish stonemasons were actually brought over from Ireland because they wanted people who
knew what they were doing.
Yeah, masters of their craft, and they didn't trust Arkansans to do this.
And again, we're sorry about anybody who lives in Arkansas. We're not making fun of you. We know the people in a state are not their politicians. We're not the government that are representing that state. We know that
very well.
Very well.
I grew up in Texas.
Okay. So we love any of you there that are listening to us. Don't worry about that. But we just, just like you have your opinions about certain people in certain states, that's been jammed down our throat as well.
Yes. And if you live in Arkansas, you probably know.
I know. It's probably beautiful there.
It is, I've heard. I've only driven through it. So they sourced the limestone from a White River quarry, which was not too far away. I think it was about 5 miles from where the hotel was built. And they assembled 18-inch thick blocks of limestone to build this hotel.
Wow.
Now, one of these masons is considered to be the hotel's first ghost. He would tragically fall to his death while building, and where he landed is now room 218 of the hotel. This room is considered the most active of the haunted rooms within the Crescent Hotel. Guests have reported slamming doors, visions in the mirror, and opening drawers in the middle of the night.
I was about to say, isn't that the same room at the Stanley? But I think it's 217.
Oh, might be. I don't remember.
I think that's the lady with the gas explosion at the Stanley, 217.
There's something in those twos. Be careful. This mason turned ghost is called Michael by the hotel, and many visitors actually request room 218 in hopes of experiencing paranormal activity and getting to hang out with him.
Poor Michael. He left his homeland to come build a hotel and got stuck here.
Probably not what he wanted, and that's why he's slamming drawers in the middle of the night. He's pissed.
Yeah.
I would be too if I came from beautiful Ireland and got stuck in Arkansas.
We just said it was beautiful. Shh.
I know. The Ozarks are actually pretty. So May 1st of 1886 was the grand opening for the Crescent Hotel, and they had a large gala, and all the rich and wealthy people of the time came to celebrate. And it would operate as a year-round hotel for its first 22 years. Like the Stanley Hotel, it boasted modern conveniences that weren't seen in many hotels of the time. They had Edison lamps, they had a hydraulic elevator, they had their own bathrooms. The hotel was an impressive structure, especially considering how remote it was in this small town in the Ozarks. The hotel was marketed towards wealthy visitors, and that's who could afford to stay there at the time. And several of today's ghosts appear dressed in Victorian garb and are believed to be from this early era. Much of the activity seems to be centered around the Crystal Dining Room, where dancing Victorian ghosts have been seen in the wee hours of the night. Staff have experienced decor being moved around when nobody was in the room. Guests and staff have reported seeing a man in dapper, I love that word, Victorian clothing sitting and looking pensively out a window. The hotel began to struggle financially because there were too few guests that could afford to stay there.
That happens.
And also during the winter months, it gets cold in the Ozarks and nobody wanted to travel there. It quickly became unmanageable and began to fall into disrepair. To help make more money, the Crescent College and Conservatory for Young Women opened in 1908. This was run during the winter months, and then the hotel would continue as a resort during the summer months.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. They found a way to keep it useful.
Yes. The Crescent College was a boarding college for fine young ladies.
So did they go home?
Yes. So they would be there during the winter and then they'd go home for the summer.
So then the hotel was only open for a couple of months?
Yeah, sounds like.
Weird.
And it was a boarding school the rest of the time. This was a time when women were not educated. It wasn't seen as a need for women to be educated because they were just homemakers and to take care of families. And so this school was set up for the wealthy women, and it wasn't really teaching them anything too important. It was more about like society and how to be a lady, how to dress well, how to host a dinner party, how to walk right,
how to run his books and not make any money.
Many prominent families sent their daughters to school here. It was considered to be one of the most exclusive boarding academies in Arkansas. The tuition was $375 a year, which is equivalent to about $13,000 today.
Cheaper than normal boarding school.
I feel like $13,000 doesn't seem like that much.
That's
today.
what I'm saying. It's cheaper than what would be boarding school anywhere else.
But I think the important thing to consider here is that people weren't spending any money to educate their daughters at the time. So
True.
$13,000 on a girl child would have felt like an extravagance.
When in reality, it's just getting them out of your house.
Probably.
They didn't care about their future. They're going to marry them off anyway.
Mm-hmm. There was a brochure I saw when I was researching this that like attracted people to the Crescent College or whatever. And it was like, come and train the minds of young women.
Ugh.
I don't like the word train.
No.
And that's basically what they were doing. They're like, bring your pedigree girls and we'll train them like a good little dog.
I bet you it was where they sent their daughters who were already
rebelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. They're like, oh, you don't want to just go marry the guy down the street that you've known since you were 8 years old and be a wife? Time for you to go off and get trained.
Yeah.
So back to the ghosties. One of the hotel ghosts is said to be a young woman from the Crescent College era who was pregnant at the time of her death.
Oh, see what I'm saying?
Wonder who got her pregnant. It was an all-women's college, probably one of the teachers or staff. Nobody really knows her full story.
Okay.
Some speculate that the father of her baby was one of the professors. They believe she fell or perhaps jumped or perhaps even was pushed from her third floor balcony and died from her injuries. This young girl's ghost is seen as a mist-like apparition in a nightgown, sometimes jumping from the balcony.
Aw.
But she also drifts in the hallway and on the back courtyard.
Her family made her go there. Someone raped her. She got pregnant and she was murdered.
And they had to hide it. The institution for women closed down in 1924. And then it reopened again in 1930 as a junior college, which was open for both boys and girls.
Okay.
But that didn't last long. After the college closed in 1934, the Crescent Hotel was leased as a summer hotel, but it would continue to stand vacant for many months out of the year. So far, we've heard of a few going-ons that might have led to some of the eventual hauntings, but now I'm going to get into what I consider the darkest chapter of the hotel and what would most likely lead to the haunting scene today.
Okay.
In 1937, it got a new owner, Norman Baker, who turned the place into a hospital and health resort.
That's where it always goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. The Depression was hard on Eureka Springs tourist community, and Norman Baker came in promising to revitalize the town with the development of a cancer-curing hospital. He called it his castle in the air.
Okay.
And this is where I want to talk more about this man because he is something else.
Okay.
The story can't fully be appreciated without understanding more about Norman Baker, who is just an absolute piece of shit. So Norman Baker was born on November 27th, 1882 in Muscatine, Iowa. Norman was the youngest of 10 children. His father, John Baker, owned the Baker Manufacturing Company in Muscatine and also reportedly had 126 patents to his name.
Oh, wow. He was busy.
Norman's mother, Frances, worked as a writer before she got married. I guess
Before
once she got married, she couldn't do that anymore.
She had 10 children.
She had to have 10 kids and, give up all of her dreams. Norman showed early promise as an inventor and a machinist. He left school at the age of 16 to begin working as a die and tool maker, traveling from town to town in search of work. But in 1904, he became intrigued by traveling shows presenting mental suggestion performances and other vaudeville performers. He was so inspired that he set out to produce his own version of the show. Under his own troupe, he took the name of Charles Welch and traveled the country. After an initially slow start, Norman's show took off and became quite the hit. This show featured a mind reader known as Madame Pearl Tangley. Madame Pearl Tangley would change all the time because she was just an actress and it was whoever he could find.
Okay.
And at one point, I think it was like the third or fourth Pearl Tangley, her name was actually Teresa Pender. He married her and they continued on their show. It ran for 4 years before Norman's career took another divergent path. While working on a new invention in his brother's machine shop, Norman invented a calliope, which used air rather than steam to operate. Now, I did not know what a calliope was, and you would know it if I show you a picture. It's something that's associated with like the circus. It looks like a big organ accordion thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's on a large cart. And it's what they would play.
Oh, okay.
The dun 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 music on.
Okay.
But most of those were steam operated
Interesting.
at the time. And he invented this air version.
Okay.
He called it the Air Calliophone and it sold for $500 and he started making pretty good money.
Interesting.
He decided to quit the vaudeville circuit to become full-time manufacturing of this invention under the name of Tangley Company. He and his wife, Teresa, divorced the same year that he became wealthy. Don't know what that's about. Hopefully she walked away with some money. His manufacturing business became very successful and at its height was reported to be making $200,000 a year, which is about $6.3 million today.
Yeah, he was doing well.
So he's doing well. And on top of that, in 1920, Norman set up an art college known as the Tangley School. And despite confessing to having no artistic ability himself, he managed to pay himself $75,000 a year as a teacher.
Wow.
I think that was just a way for him to have a salary. I'm not real sure. But
yeah.
Again, in 1924, Norman changed his career. He met with the Muscatine Chamber of Commerce and offered to build a radio station to popularize Muscatine throughout the world.
He was a crazy little entrepreneur back then, it sounds like.
Norman promised to use his radio show to promote Muscatine as an investment opportunity for businesses. So he was going to bring all this business to Muscatine, and they gave him this chance to have his own radio show.
Okay.
He chose the call letters KTNT for this new radio station, which stood for Know the Naked Truth.
Okay.
His show aired for the first time on Thanksgiving Day of 1925. It used the calliophone for his sign-on signal.
Okay.
So it was like his little emblem.
Just kidding.
And Baker put his skills as a veteran carnival performer to use as a radio promoter and announcer. But he immediately went into using his platform to become an agitator. And he started going after big broadcasters. And he became somehow, by 1926, the president of the American Broadcasters Association, which was a lobbying group against the monopolies of the big broadcasters. I think about this as like the small independent newspapers or the small, independent independent news channels of today trying to fight the large guys. So
right.
I kind of get it. Mm-hmm. He railed against AT&T, which at the time was the monopoly on radio station transmitters. So while he was creating this show, they own the radio station transmitters, and a lot of times they would silence the smaller guys in certain areas. So he wasn't getting like widespread broadcasting, and he didn't like that. And
yeah.
In a way, he was fighting for the little guy, and he liked to cast himself as the hero for small business owners and rural communities.
But really, he was just an opportunist.
He's really just looking to make money.
Yeah.
That's the sad part about all of this. He also began publishing a magazine called TNT for the Naked Truth. It was meant to undercut other newspapers. This is where he kind of just takes a weird detour because I don't know if something cracked in his brain or whatever, but he began to think that everyone was conspiring against him. And he kind of became the voice of the populist movement that was popular at the time. And I see him as kind of like this homeopathic guy. In a way, he sounds like somebody we would like.
No, I've met too many.
But I feel like he was just, what's the word, capitalizing on other people's.
He's trying to be the good guy, but yet
he doesn't have a good motive.
No, he doesn't have a good motive. And he's so full of himself that if anybody tries to say anything bad about him, he's like, see, they're attacking us. But really, it's just all his fucking ego.
It was. He started operating a traveling campaign bus equipped with a calliope. He had large demand. People would show up to listen to him talk, and he would denounce mandated cattle tuberculosis tests. He spoke against water fluoridation. He spoke against vaccinations and also aluminum cookware, which he claimed caused half of all cancers.
I mean,
so some of this sounds...
Yeah, I mean, he's not sounding wrong in a lot of what he's doing, but obviously at some point he takes it all too far.
He's going to take it too far. He started off on a good point and, was getting the word out there. And so he got a lot of followers because they're like, yeah, I don't agree with that either because it's going to cause, harm to people.
But then you prop someone up too much and they're like, oh, I'm your king.
And I think that's what's going to happen here.
Right.
I know that's what's going to happen here with Norman. His KTNT show became so popular that thousands of people would come to the station just to hear his broadcasts because it couldn't be broadcast everywhere that he wanted it to. And so people would drive just to listen to him talk.
Interesting.
His radio career was thriving and he became very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Because he also still had the calliope business and he had the publishing and he just started making lots of money, became quite well known in Iowa.
Oh, we're still all in Iowa right now.
Mm-hmm. He used his radio station and magazine to launch blistering attacks on innumerable commercial, media, and political groups, both locally, and then he spread it out to nationwide. Some of the organizations he was known to take jabs at included Wall Street,
okay,
the American Medical Association, and the Aluminum Trust. So once again, doesn't sound like a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
But something happened as his popularity profile soared. He began to alienate himself from his listenership and followers by engaging in spiteful, attempted character assassinations of his enemies, accusing them on air of adultery, drunkenness, money laundering. He kind of started going after people on a personal basis instead of keeping it to the high level that he had started. And so that had the opposite effect, and it kind of turned away many of his followers because they didn't want to support someone who was just doing smear campaigns on everybody.
They didn't know those people.
There's no reason. But it was his next venture that really led to his downfall. For whatever reason, he got involved in wanting to cure cancer. In 1929, he heard of Dr. Charles Ozias, who had purportedly discovered a cure. Norman called for 5 volunteers with cancer to be sent to Dr. Ozias for treatment at his expense, which seems like a noble endeavor.
Okay.
He told everyone that his magazine, The Naked Truth, would publish the study's findings in the December issue of 1929. He was very vocal on his radio station that he did not trust doctors. He said they were educated fools, and he called surgeons who were doing life-saving cancer treatments at the time cutters, incapable of helping patients.
I also don't disagree. They only created medical studies in the way that they did because women were good at it, and we did it homeopathically, and we had the knowledge, and so they made it so that you had to be a doctor through education.
Yeah, I 1 wonder about some of that. He actually said that MD stood for more dough.
Oh,
like money, which kind of makes sense.
I'm not saying that you should not absolutely go to school and learn how to cut into people, do surgeries and take out organs and all of that. But I'm just saying in the beginning, I'm not sure I trusted a lot of doctors with their quote education back then.
Yeah, maybe not back then. He also denounced the cures of the time, which were surgery, radium, or X-ray. So I think X-ray was kind of like their radiation at the time. And he said that those would not help cancer, which
we know they don't.
They kind of don't, but he's not going to go about it in the right way. He claimed that he had this cure from Dr. Ozius and that the formula could be administered by injection to cure cancer and you wouldn't need to have surgery or radiation or anything else done.
Oh, is it an alien solution? Because otherwise, no.
So he had the 5 people
that
he paid for. And in November of 1929, the first patient died.
Okay.
In spite of this, Norman published in his magazine
that they lived,
that cancer is cured.
Oh
that
my
was
God.
the headline.
Okay.
Right after he published that, a second patient died. And then the third and the fourth died.
Okay.
Outrageously and shamefully, Norman reprinted the December issue in March of 1930 when 4 of the 5 patients are dead at this point, saying
it was a success.
It was successful.
Oh my
and
God.
that these people lived and their cancer was cured. And then just 2 months later in May, after he republished that, the 5th patient also died because this was not a cure.
What were they being injected with?
Let me tell you. The formula turned out to be a useless concoction of alcohol, glycerin, carbolic acid mixed with tea brewed from watermelon seed, brown corn silk, and clover leaves. That is what they were injecting into these patients.
Where?
Just at the trial with Dr. Ozius.
No, I mean like where in their body?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I would assume just a general injection.
Isn't too far off from what we do now. Like they have what? Quote, trials.
Right.
And then we release these medications that kill everybody, you know?
I know.
He just kind of did it on a very small scale.
Yes.
It is done with millions and millions of people with fucking pharmaceuticals today.
Oh, yeah. And they're not telling us everything that comes out either.
Nothing has changed.
Norman Baker was not a trained medical profession of any kind.
Neither are the fucking CEOs and all the people in charge of our fucking healthcare.
Truth. And they don't care if they can market the drugs enough. Even if they know 50% of people are going to die or whatever, they still make enough money. Like they do all those risk analysis that makes me so sick to think about.
Free Luigi.
We need more Luigis. We need a Mario.
And a dinosaur doggy.
And a Princess Peach. So with this formula that he purported to have cured cancer with, he opened the Baker Institute for the Treatment of Cancer in Muscatine. And then he used his radio show to promote this new hospital. And he also employed another charlatan with his own alleged cure for cancer. His name was Harry Hoxsey.
With a hoax.
Kind of goes with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Desperate and vulnerable cancer sufferers believed in Norman and Hoxsey's cures, and they flocked to this treatment center.
That's horrible.
This makes me so angry. He knew it did not work.
Yes.
It's one thing if like the trial had shown like some promise. They all 5 died. He knew this didn't work, but he wanted to make money. The Baker Institute became very financially successful and had earnings of over $444,000 in the first year, which is about $8 million.
Okay.
Norman did get on the radar of the American Medical Association, and they knew he was fraudulent and they wanted to expose him. In 1930, the Journal of the American Medical Association published an editorial accusing Norman Baker of quackery. I like that word.
Quack, quack, quack.
Norman pounced back at them and said the American Medical Association was actually the Amateur Meat Cutters Association, and they didn't know what they were talking about. The Des Moines Register reprinted the AMA's story and conducted their own investigation into Norman Baker, and they revealed that many patients of the Baker Institute had died and that Norman's claims of having a cure for cancer were completely false.
So are the meat cutters.
How so?
Because they were still killing people.
But they had more people living than like all his people were dying.
It's just that it took a long time to figure stuff out, but it's always been about who's in charge, where's the money coming from. In reality, it's never been about who's going to survive.
No. Norman is saying that the AMA offered him money for his cure. They did not. He was claiming that the only reason American Medical Association was coming after him is because they knew he had the cure for cancer and they were trying to cover it up. And so he was claiming that they offered him $1 million for this phony bullshit, when in fact they were just trying to warn people not to trust him, because at least if you went in for radiation and surgery, you had a chance of living,
and
when
dying.
They knew if you went to Norman Baker,
you were gonna die.
You were gonna die because he's just shooting you full of like watermelon
sugar
juice.
water.
So Norman took legal action against the American Medical Association for libel and defamation. He claimed that the AMA had sent 3 assassins to his radio station to try and silence him. So he's like building this whole conspiracy theory again.
Was it the 3 Musketeers in Muscatine?
There was a police investigation into the matter, and it was dropped quickly because there was no evidence that that ever occurred.
Okay.
In May, Norman decided to hold an outdoor public demonstration of his cure to quell any doubts about its validity. There was an estimated crowd of 40 to 50,000 that showed up to listen to Norman, and he had supposed former patients of the Baker Institute lined up one after another, telling of how Norman Baker's treatment had magically cured them.
They were all actors.
They were, of course, were all paid actors.
Okay.
And while there, Norman drank a large quantity of the formula to prove that it was harmless. It was all natural, homeopathic
sugar water.
Yes. Norman Baker told the crowd, "Cancer is cured," and everybody cheered. He once more launched into the American Medical Association, and his tirade continued daily on his radio show.
I don't get it. Like, your people are going to die. How long can you?
Yeah, you can only carry this on for so long. Norman Baker lost his court case against the AMA, and an arrest warrant was issued against him for practicing medicine without a license.
Okay.
This is all still in Iowa. I haven't even got to the Crescent Hotel yet.
I know.
Iowa's trial against Norman Baker began in September of 1930 and gained nationwide attention. Simultaneously, while this was happening, Norman was also called before the Federal Radio Commission in Washington, D.C. because they wanted to strip his KTNT license away because they saw him as dangerous. He's spreading misinformation.
Yeah, he is.
While this was going on, his partner Hoxie, they kind of turned against each other and were fighting over the money and the profits from the hospital and sued each other. So it just became a big shit show. The Iowa Supreme Court sustained the injunction against Norman and his practice and said he could no longer have this institute for curing cancer. And they also stripped away his license for his radio show in June of 1931. Among cited reasons were venomous, obscene broadcasts against public interest. So he was basically ran out of Iowa. And where would anybody who gets ran out go?
Arkansas.
Not yet. He went to Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And in Mexico, he started another radio show.
Oh, gosh.
Because he could. And there was nothing the U.S. could do about it. So he started a new show called Xent, X-E-N-T. And it became one of the most popular stations again. And he began using it to promote his alleged cancer cure. He also opened a hospital in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, called the Baker Hospital.
He's just a cult leader. That's what he is.
He's using desperate people to make money, which makes you the lowest form of humanity possible.
Yep.
He eventually returned from Mexico and went back to Iowa in 1937. He was arrested right away and put into the Muscatine County Jail, but he only served 1 day, and he had to pay a $50 contempt of court fine, and that was it.
He must have known that's all he had to do to go back then.
I'm sure.
Why risk it?
He had the money to get the lawyers, so he knew what he could do. So he stayed in Mexico long enough, I'm sure, to not have any big repercussions, and then came back.
And they were like, you can come back, but so we can show that we punished you, you have to be in jail for 1 day.
And then he had the audacity to run for governor of Iowa on the farmer labor ticket in 1932.
Mostly anybody who runs for political office have the audacity.
Yeah, and a lot of them suck, like Norman Baker.
Yes.
He only received a few hundred votes, but the campaign kept him in the news, which is what he was really about.
Right.
And gave him yet another mouthpiece for his rants against local power structures. He began asserting that common people were being exploited by monopolistic conspiracies. So he was like the original conspiracy theorist that had a platform in a lot of ways.
But he was also just too selfish. He could have done really good things.
But he was driven by money versus true solving of humanitarians' problems.
He's the liberal that gave everybody the bad name.
Yeah, he is. He is the guy who's just using liberal ideas to capitalize and make money for himself. And I'm sure there's plenty of politicians doing that.
Oh, yeah.
In America today as well.
Exactly.
They say what you want to hear.
Most.
The other thing is Baker was kind of an eccentric character. In his heyday, he was known for wearing white suits, purple shirts, and lavender ties, as well as driving an orchid-colored car. He loved purple.
It's a cool color to like.
I love purple. It's actually my favorite color. So he was also described as being very handsome. I do have pictures of him from back when he was doing his mentalist days. He would hypnotize people in front of crowds and everything. He was a good looking guy.
I would assume so, to have the following and people listening like they were.
It makes you more trustworthy. We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
He was also said to have hypnotic eyes. So people just were drawn in by him.
Serial killer.
Probably. He was a demon. He was said to have been one of the greatest showmen who ever lived.
I mean, he sounds quite fascinating.
He was also reported to always have one or more submachine guns within his reach, which was kind of crazy back in the times of the 1930s. Machine guns were something like the mafia.
He's like one of those freaking guys who just wants to do it all. He can't sit still. Like, he has these ideas that he's like, I'm going to help the people.
He's also definitely probably a narcissist.
That's what I'm saying. He might have a mental problem, actually.
Delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, delusions of grandeur. And he does have these moments where he's like, I'm helping people, but then he gets too much praise. They can't function after things are taken away from them. They're babies.
He had 2 books published about himself, speaking of narcissism, and his crusade for humanity. I put that in quotations. There was a book written about him in 1934 that was titled Doctors, Dynamiters, and Gunmen.
Sounds like frickin' Jack Parsons.
Kind of. And Norman Baker talked about this book on his radio show and said it was the most important book ever written.
Oh.
And this brings us up to 1937 and the Crescent Hotel. Don't worry, I did not get lost. We're getting back there.
I got lost.
You're like, what is this episode even about, Kendra? So we're back in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Norman Baker found a city down on its luck, and he was able to purchase the Crescent Hotel. It was very cheap at the time because it had fallen into complete disrepair due to the Depression and no tourism.
Okay.
And Norman, who we know is not a doctor, he had healing philosophies that were consistent with the holistic natural health environment of Eureka because of like the natural springs and all that. And he was able to kind of come in and swindle the community. This is at a time when things didn't travel very far, so nobody knew about his endeavors in Muscatine.
Okay.
So he came in and said he had a holistic way to cure cancer, and he was going to set up a hospital at the Crescent Hotel. Upon purchasing it, Norman embarked on a kind of garish remodeling of the hotel. He made everything bright colors.
Purple?
Mostly lavender. He used red, black, and gold enamel paint all over the walls in the public rooms. And he used an Art Deco style geometric forms. I don't know. It sounds kind of cool. It doesn't look like this today.
That's where you go to do drugs.
I guess if you're in there for cancer, you wanted to make it lively. And it just looked like something from the carnival days of his beginnings. He also installed a air calliope on the top level of the building. That's something that just followed him everywhere he went.
Well, he did invent it.
True. And he was proud of it. Many people, sick and weak and dying, came to the hotel to take his cancer cure, which we know, of course, was not doing anything for them.
I mean, was it something you had to like be injected with daily?
Yes. And he charged an exorbitant fee to stay in the hotel and take that cancer cure every day. He swindled families out of their life savings, telling them that this was their way to cure their loved ones. So that just makes me really angry.
Yes.
On some occasions, even after patients died in his care, he would not tell their loved ones that they had passed in order to continue collecting payments, because I'm sure they probably paid monthly or something.
Right.
So he's a complete con man.
That sucks.
It's probably not surprising that much of the supernatural activities come from people that are believed to have been cancer patients.
They were all lied to.
Of course they were. And many are associated with the morgue that was set up in the basement during this time, because Norman Baker knew eventually all of these people were going to die.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a cure and he had nothing to help them.
That's really fucked up. Yeah, he's fucked up.
He's just letting them come there and stay, knowing that they're just going to continue to waste away from this cancer that he's not doing anything to help.
He's just the circus ringleader everywhere he goes. Yep. That's what the hospital became.
I just don't know how you live with yourself.
You don't. He lost himself somehow, or he always was. It was never from a place of empathy. It was from a place place of being different. He felt like the Fringe was where he was popular, and so that's where he stayed, but it was never out of a place of empathy for anyone.
No, it was a niche market for him to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we still have that today.
Yes, we do.
I mean, there's plenty of supplements we know out on the market that don't do shit for you.
They hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Some of them hurt your liver now. It's coming out and saying.
So much shit hurts your liver, God damn it.
And people are making money by saying that it's helping.
You have to be careful.
So these are just a few of the sightings of people that we believe died in the Crescent Hotel when it was under Dr. Baker. I say that in quotations. So Theodora is a ghost who lives in room 419. She is said to introduce herself to guests as one of Dr. Baker's patients, and she says she's just looking for her room key.
Aww.
She sounds lost, and this is really sad. Theodora has even been known to tidy up or repack bags after the guests leave the room. This reminds me of the Stanley Hotel.
Yes, it does.
There's another girl.
Makes you wonder some things.
If they all just have the same stories.
Just repurposed.
It does make you wonder.
When we talked about the student who was possibly knocked up by someone and she died, there's the same story at the Waverly of a nurse who got knocked up and she died, and they thought it was maybe the doctor.
And we know that hotels capitalize. Speaking of conning and all of that, a lot of these haunted locations, they make a lot of money off of it.
Right.
Norman Baker himself is supposedly seen in the hotel lobby. He wears a purple shirt and white linen suit, and his appearance matches that of known photographs of the charlatan.
I'm like picturing him with those plastic glasses where they're not really glasses, where the glass should be. It's like a black and white spiral.
No, the hypnotist. He had hypnotic eyes.
Right.
There is a nurse pushing a gurney seen in the area of what was known as the hospital morgue. People report hearing the squeaky wheels of the gurney. That could be anything, but that's what they believe it to be.
Mm-hmm.
People report hearing screaming or voices when no one is around, especially near the morgue.
Oh.
Some people report feeling faint while on the third floor. There have been pots and pans flying off of hooks in the hotel kitchen, reported by a chef. And then a couple of other ones that are not probably related to the cancer hospital. Morris, the cat.
Oh.
He was said to have been a tabby cat that lived in the hotel until the 1970s. And guests say that they can feel him rubbing against their legs. I love the cat and dog ones.
Yep.
And then there is another ghost, and I don't really know where he fits in, but his name is Brecky, and he's a young boy. Some people believe that he could have been a patient from Norman Baker's days, or that he was the 4-year-old son of the college president back when it was one of the junior colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that the president at the time had a little boy who died of complications from appendicitis. So some believe that it could be him. And this one also sounds like every other hotel,
right?
Because he is said to
play with balls.
His ball in the hallways.
That is straight from the Waverly House,
and also from the Stanley Hotel. They're all just playing from the same book.
Okay, I am having some problems now. Like, as you were going through all the ghosts, I'm like, I've heard this before. I've heard this before. I've heard this before. There's just like one or two things that have changed.
And
I don't trust anything now.
And now it's like, who's copying who?
Everybody's copying everybody. Wow. While you were telling me the story of the boy, I didn't ask it soon enough because I was trying not to be rude because I have interrupted you a lot on this episode already. I was like, does he play with balls?
Yeah. All boys play with their balls.
I mean, they are quite interesting. You're like, wow, ding-a-ling-a-ling. But wow, I really don't know what to think right now.
And then there's another one that also sounds like every other haunted place. There is people who say that they smell tobacco in room 212, and they believe it might have been an in-house doctor for the hotel named Dr. Ellis, and cherry pipe tobacco.
What if ghosts are not what we think they are, but it's another way for people to make money on the spiritual plane? And really, they're just all actors. There's like a ghost.
And they go to the different hotels.
A ghost school. And they're hired to haunt throughout the world. And so that's why there's not enough of them.
That's why they're all ladies in white.
Uh-huh.
I hate to like laugh, but I do feel like the more hauntings we do, like by the time we get to the actual haunting ghost part of it, like this story is amazingly interesting. Like the things that have happened at the Crescent Hotel definitely says it should be haunted, but then it's just like the generic list of ghosts.
I know it really is. And as I've said on many episodes, like I have experiences. I deal with it all the time, but I have gone to these places that are supposedly haunted and I don't feel anything. The only thing that I ever felt closest to feeling like a haunting was when I was at the Queen Mary walking by myself in a part of the ship, but it wasn't very intense. I felt like a presence of a history there more than I ever have going to any other location that I've been to. But again, that's the most I have. And I am a sensitive person and shit happens to me. So,
right. Did you go to the pool?
I did go to the pool.
Did you feel the little girl?
Nope.
Yeah. I feel like the Queen Mary had more unique stories.
And there were a lot of people who died there. I actually took pictures of the lists for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was used in war. Like there was a lot of things.
There were a lot of people who died on board. I don't know. I think it would be really interesting for you to go. I think you would love it.
Oh, yeah.
I think I would need to go back again without a child and my mother to watch out for.
Yes.
A lot of things I think I would experience differently on my own. But again, we're just back here and I'm just like,
I know.
People are capitalizing everywhere we turn on whatever they can to make money. And that's what it becomes. And so it's really hard for me to believe a lot of shit.
I can tell you that when I went to Lizzie Borden house, I felt something.
Yeah, you did say that.
But we know a murder took place there.
Right.
We don't know, like in these hotels, like I feel like it is a tourist draw for a lot of these things to say they're haunted.
And it's more for the history of the place. They keep it looking like it did back then, which is interesting.
And that's what I like
and
to
it's
go
allure.
to. Yeah. Like if I visited the Crescent Hotel, it would be more because it's a really cool looking place.
Right.
It does have a weird history. And we know a lot of people died there. So there is going to be an energy. We know it is built of limestone. So it would hold energies there. But the stories coming out of there from the people just seem very generic.
I think the hardest thing about these supposed haunted places is you really do need to have personal access.
Yeah.
These ghost tours or anything else that you're paying for, it's not going to happen for you then.
There's too many people.
Why would they communicate or interact with you at any point during that? I think the only time you're ever going to experience that is staying somewhere.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, outside of these just generic things that are probably taken from the ghost tour, honestly, I did find people who stayed there and did YouTube videos. One girl wrote a whole like blog about it and they did have experiences and it was always staying in the hotel rooms.
Right.
And something happening in the middle of the night, which are more believable.
Yes, it is. And my mom, her affirmation, quote, apparition that she saw, it was in our room. Her experience was seeing a woman who was kind of floating behind me over the bed into the wall on the other side of the bed. That's what she saw.
And I think that's a lot of what you would see.
Yeah.
Back to the Crescent Hotel. Norman Baker reportedly accumulated hundreds of thousands of dollars again, which he kept in various safe deposits known only to him and his new accomplice when he purchased the Crescent Hotel. Her name was Thelma Yount. It was said that the hospital cleared about $500,000 in 1 year, which is about $10 million. But time was running out for Norman. He was a marked man by federal authorities. He could only run for so long.
Yeah.
He had been sending letters in the mail to promote his hospital that he was calling the Baker Hospital again. Not real creative. This is how they caught Norman Baker. Mail fraud. Because he was sending fraudulent brochures or whatever in the mail claiming things that were not true. And in 1940, he was brought to court by the Federal Postal Service or whatever, and he was found guilty. The court stated that Norman Baker's cancer cure was pure hoax. He continued to throw out accusations that everyone was just against him and it was conspiracy theory, but it didn't work. He also claimed that the jurors in his case had been bribed with whiskey and women.
Well, they might have, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, dude. You're still a fucking fraud.
Yeah.
And he did get convicted and he would end up serving 3 years and 4 months at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary.
That's it for people dying on your watch because you claimed that they could be cured?
I know. It doesn't seem like enough.
Again, this is like the CEO of a certain healthcare company.
He had a lot of money. At this point, he has millions upon millions of dollars.
Wow. Those people could have chosen an alternative way to die, and they trusted you.
I know. They didn't have any chance with his injection.
And they could have been home with people who loved them.
I know. Instead, they're sitting in this hospital where this guy's just raping their family for money monthly.
Yep.
Like, fuck this guy.
There's probably horrible conditions too.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot about that. Nobody really focused much on like what it was like. Maybe because most of the patients died. We don't know because it sounds like it was hidden. I don't think they let the family come in and visit them. Obviously, if they were still getting money from them after their family members passed.
I mean, just like the Waverly House, they did not do a good job of keeping records, but they were actually trying to do something there. It wasn't.
No, that was a legitimate place.
A legitimate place compared to him. It was all false. So I imagine the record keeping was intentionally slim.
So during Norman Baker's imprisonment, the Crescent Hotel was left in the hands of his partner, Thelma Yount, but she couldn't keep it going and it quickly closed. The events that took place during the years 1938 and 1939 not only led to the hospital's demise, but it also damaged the town's reputation, which you can imagine.
Right. Yeah.
This was supposed to be a place of healing, and it had been for years. Eureka Springs was the healing waters, and now they had this like stain upon them.
Where people come to die.
I can't imagine. I never saw anywhere how many people died at this location, and I would think that would be something known, but I also think, like we said, there were no records kept.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing this all like knowing that those people were coming to die, so he was hiding everything, and it's just absolutely horrific. Like, I feel so bad for these people who had hope and the families that sent them there.
Yep.
After Norman was released in 1946, he attempted to return to healing by establishing a research foundation in Muscatine, Iowa, for the purpose of cancer curing. Again, this guy just doesn't give up. But
it's like the people with violent histories and pedophiles. It's like, just stop. Put them on a list somewhere. They're not allowed to help anyone. Yeah, it's crazy.
This guy's made a ton of money. What does he need? But the state of Iowa, they refused him permission to start any kind of foundation or anything else in the public interest. They were looking out for them. Norman eventually retired to Miami, Florida, where he died in September of 1958 of cirrhosis.
Okay.
I think it would have been fitting if he had died from cancer, but he did not. Norman Baker is now known as one of the most ruthless quacks in American history. There are, though, still people out there who defend him and say that he had the best interests of people in mind and that he was a healer. Those people must also
be Trumpers.
Believe in Trump. So and they were saying that it was all a conspiracy and mainstream medicine was trying to suppress his cure.
Why does anybody have an opinion of him like that at all? They didn't know him. They weren't around then.
I think maybe because he is their great-great-grandfather. There's only like a few of them. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Anyways, that is all I'm going to say about Norman Baker. Fuck that guy.
Yep.
The Crescent Hotel was left ownerless after he moved out until 1946. In the spring of 1946, 4 Chicago businessmen purchased the hotel and remodeled it. Understandably, they didn't want it to look anything like Baker had left it.
Yep.
They partnered with the Frisco Railway and developed a package tour method of bringing in national travelers by train, and they would provide food and entertainment for the entire week. So it almost sounds like an all-inclusive vacation.
Okay.
And this helped bring it back into being what it originally was and helped recover the whole town and their reputation. In 1997, Marty and Elise Rognick purchased the Crescent Hotel for $1.3 million. They oversaw a 6-year restoration and renovation of the hotel, and that is who remains in ownership today.
Okay, they got a pretty good deal on it, it sounds like.
Yeah, $1.3 million for a huge hotel.
Yeah.
In 1997.
Yeah.
It seems pretty crazy, cheap.
It's either that or demolition and complete like failure to retain it. So,
and this is a historic location.
Right.
And the hotel has slowly been remodeled closer to be what its original design was. So if you visit it today, it looks like it originally did in 1886.
Okay.
It is currently a member of the National Trust Historic Hotels of America, and it does include a spa inspired by the original healing and relaxing spas of Eureka Springs.
So they're still banking on that.
They are.
But it's more of a, this is our history.
Yes.
This is what it was about. We're not claiming anything.
No. And the sordid history of what it went through over the years has been integrated into the hotel now, and they do sponsor ghost tours.
They all do.
Of course.
And it's all $50 a ticket or more.
Yeah, they're making really good money. Now, I did say that there was something that happened in 2019, and so we got to talk about that. The hotel's landscape gardener made a gruesome discovery.
Oh no, someone was buried?
She dug up some strange bottles. It was soon realized that the bottles were identical to those that had been used on one of Norman Baker's advertising posters and brochures.
Oh.
They called the state crime lab and a hazmat crew, and the area was taped off like a crime scene. Law enforcement worked with archaeologists from the University of Arkansas to launch a full excavation of the site. The site turned out to be the lost dump for the infamous conman Norman Baker.
Okay.
As each bottle, surgical tool, and specimen jar was unearthed, it became clear that the stories and rumors about the Dr. Baker years were not only completely true, but were probably way worse than had previously been believed.
Oh.
There were so many bottles, hundreds of them, that many were ultimately just left in the ground. They couldn't keep unearthing them.
Yeah.
Some were filled with alcohol, and many of them had small bits of unidentified tissue floating inside of them.
Oh.
And looking back, I guess in his brochures, and when people would come into the hospital, he had all of these jars filled with what were supposedly tumors removed from people. And they believed that's what it was. When he knew he was going to be arrested, he, I guess, tried to hide them.
And really, it was just tissue from dead people?
Some of it was human, but some of it was animals too.
Okay.
And he was just using it as kind of like a decoration to try and prove that he knew what he was doing. Testing is still ongoing from what I saw in the last, I think this was from like 2023. The article I looked at, and they're trying to determine what's really in some of these bottles still.
Okay.
So when all of these bottles were found in 2019, it became national news, and it kind of added to the mystery and allure of the Crescent Hotel, and they saw a spike in people wanting to visit. There are several stories I found while researching of firsthand encounters with the ghosts that do haunt the Crescent Hotel, not necessarily all of the ones that we already talked about. And in interviews, the director of marketing, his name is Bill Ott, he has said that the haunting activity at the Crescent Hotel has never been malevolent. Only mischievous at worst.
Okay.
Whatever is there, it's not a dark entity. And everything that I saw with the people who did have firsthand experiences, it didn't sound like anything scary either.
Okay.
It was more like just disturbing in the middle of the night. Somebody's ruffling around. One of the ladies said she woke up, she thought her husband was by the side of the bed. There was a man clearing his throat.
Ready to tuck her in and give her a kiss, and
Maybe.
I'll be on my way.
It was not her husband. So, but she didn't say that she was like afraid.
Okay.
The director of marketing believes that the ghosts who are there are haunting for two main reasons: because they have unfinished business.
And they're getting
know.
paid by the talent agency for ghosts.
Yeah, on Beetlejuice side.
Yes.
Or he believes some come back there because it was a location that they enjoyed while they were alive.
I don't believe that one.
He's the marketing guy. He has a quote that he said, "I've always said we've made people happy since 1886. So of course they're going to come back and enjoy more time at the Crescent Hotel."
Okay.
I can't even read that with a straight face. Anyways, if you do want to visit the Crescent Hotel, you can stay there. It is an active hotel. Room 218 is the most popular. It probably has like a 3-year waiting list or something similar to Stanley Hotel. And they offer the daily ghost tours to anyone, whether you're staying there or not. I did also see that the Crescent Hotel has been featured on several different ghost hunter shows. I didn't bother writing them down because there's so many now, but they are all over YouTube, and you can see them going in and doing their paranormal investigations with their, I was about to say EKG readers, but that's not it.
No, with their ghost wands.
Whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're in there looking for it, and they've had experiences.
Yeah, because like we said, people died there. Things happened. Doesn't mean it's not there. It's just not in the way that they probably say.
Anyways, that is my story of the Crescent Hotel, supposedly the most haunted hotel in America.
And that's why I love stories like this, because it allows us to talk about things we usually don't. There's more flexibility, I guess.
So thank you to all of our listeners. We will continue to bring content every week. We'll have a new episode next Tuesday. I think we have lab reports coming up where we get to share your stories along with a couple of mini episodes.
Yes. And if you have any of your own, please send those in to lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com.
And we will see you soon. In the meantime,
stay lucid. Bye.